I love how you said too, like the part of your story where, your friend reached out to you and and pretty much encouraged you. She was like, okay, like you have to get out of this. You have to move out. She encouraged you to stop living in sin with this guy. And then right after that, like God sent another person and he was just like speaking to you left and right so that you just could not miss his word. So I relate to that a lot in my story, like with my toxic relationship, this guy that I was with, that I did not think I could let go of this relationship. It was like a drug. And this was before I knew Jesus, but this was the relationship that I came to know Jesus in. So this guy was like technically a Christian. And at that time I was like super new age. Like we would argue about this because I'm like, it's the goddess. And he's like, no, it's literally Jesus. And but he would say all these things, yet he was living in major, major sin because he was married and I had been engaged before this and I left this engagement, moved out, and I was going to be with this guy. And then I find out that he's like lying to us both. Like he's lying to his wife, that it's one thing, and he's lying to me that it's another thing. So I thought that he was like separated because I was in this engagement that like I knew was just broken. I knew this wasn't my person and I knew I had to get out. He didn't protect me. He like over sexualized me. But I don't want to make it seem like the guy I was engaged to wasn't a bad person. He was just like you said, a lost person and didn't protect me, didn't treat me like now my husband now like I don't know, like he's so protective and I've never experienced that. We'll get to like our good part. Like now we're in good relationships. We're married to men that protect us and love us. And that's so amazing. But we had to go through the dirt to get there. And so, yeah, I get out of this relationship and then I'm with this new guy. And yeah, like you said, I jumped relationship to relationship to relationship. And it was like love was like my drug, but it was like always kind of artificial. Like it was artificial,
Right.
and with this guy, like I was hurting so bad. And this was, so I started to realize, the games that he was playing because I would only see him like every other weekend. And he would say that like he wasn't with his wife anymore, but like I could tell that, he still was and she was still calling and still hyper involved and all these things. So I started to realize like it was all BS, but I still like just didn't know how to let him go. I didn't want to let him go. And him and I discussed together because he was a believer. So this is after I see the demon, after I start seeking, after I start going to church. And I went to a women's like study group, and my friend Tammy was telling me, she was like, God isn't the God of confusion. And she was like, this is because I
I
was like,
was
I don't know.
just gonna say that.
Yes, exactly. And God's not going to bring someone into your life that's going to cause all this chaos and pain because I kept questioning. I'm like, maybe he is my person and maybe like this and that. And Tammy's like, no, like that goes against the Bible and God isn't going to go against his own word. And I did not want to accept that, but I was like, you know what? We decided we were going to be abstinent to see like, is this something of the flesh or is this real? Because him and I were both equally as lost. And it would have been a big change for him. Like he would have moved out. He had 3 kids, a wife, and I would have been a stepmom in this whole crazy shenanigans. And so we both like were really like, okay, like, is this really or is it not? And so we were going to be abstinent. And the more we got abstinent, yeah, it was like the more distance just naturally grew and grew and grew between us. We took this sin out. And I began to develop these boundaries, like you talked about, where I was like, okay, I'm not going to let him take my power away because I felt that like I gave in to him and I gave in to him. And then I would try to be abstinent again. And then he'd come for the weekend again. And I just felt like after a while, I realized like, no, the demonic is really leading his life and he's coming here not to love me, but to conquer me and to prove something to himself every time. And so I stopped giving myself to him and he was like vicious. A switch flipped and I saw him for his true colors after that. And I got really convicted. And I haven't even shared this really. Like I haven't, oh my God, like I have not really talked about this. I've typed it out here and there and like made little comments like toxic, ungodly relationship, but I've not really like fully went into it yet. But I feel like you've been so real and vulnerable and like with your stuff, a share for a share. I'm just as messed
Yeah.
up, and God brought me out of similar
People need
crazy.
to hear that. People are hurting out there and people don't talk about it. And it's like people need to hear this, the dirty, the ugly, like this stuff. Like there's so many women who went through what we went through.
Yeah, Jesus just, he began to protect me because I didn't know how to protect myself. And he was showing me, like, no, this is how we're going to do it. Like, this is how you date. This is what love is like, because I had that so messed up for so long. And yeah, I wouldn't have figured that out had I not, like, I started coming to God's house. I started learning God's word. And I wasn't super convinced yet. Like, I still wasn't super sure about Jesus, but I was like, let me try this out. And so I just started living out his word. And the more I practiced it, my life just got better and better and better. And this chaos and pain just like, began to dissipate. Like, it was like I was no longer bringing hell up into my life the more I followed the Bible.